said, I would like to introduce our closing keynote, Leise Jensen, who is a Agile specialist with more than 20 years experience, who has founded her own company to help teams transform their ways of working, and of course creating her own methods and games to get there. Leise, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to give this closing speech and the first opportunity for me to talk about damn good leadership. The subjects I will touch upon today is about, well, I'll actually guide you through memory lane, as I call it. I'll talk about 2 principles. I'll go in detail with what is damn good leadership. And we'll talk about, or I'll talk about why and how power corrupts. There are some pretty critical boundaries in the area that I am talking about today. And last but not least, I'll conclude with elaborating a little upon Scrum without managers. So let's get started. Okay, but first, I thought you might like to know where I come from. So let me tell you a short story. And by the way, there will be no PowerPoints, so those are my paper points for today. So I am the daughter of a sailor, and this is a ship where my father started his career as a ship's boy. He was 16 years old. And I never envied him, I must say, hanging at the top of the mast, roping the sails. But he loved the free life, and he chose his career to be at the sea. I have my master in computer science and was the first academic in my family. And why am I sharing this with you guys? Well, I found out that another thing my father liked about working on a ship was the hierarchy. Especially when he reached the top of the hierarchy himself. On board the ship, it was, as you all know, aye, captain, but my father became even more powerful. He became what is called a sea pilot. So when he boarded the ship as a sea pilot, his words were never challenged. And even the captain would say, aye, pilot. So that is where I come from. And in 1996, when I actually had my first job as an engineering manager, that was at Nokia Mobile Phones, R&D, I proudly told my parents about my first job as a manager. And when I did so, my father, the sailor, checked me out and asked, okay, who decides their salary? And I said, well, I do. And then he proudly said, okay, then you're a real manager. And that's how I started my so-called career. Becoming a manager was the fastest way to earn money, more money than others. I became a manager for the wrong reasons, but that's another story. My father, the sailor, became a sea pilot, and he assisted the world's largest oil tankers and container ships. But he never turned the ship around like David Marquet did. My father was a commander and in total control of everyone as soon as he onboarded the ship. But I wanted to be different. I didn't want to be someone in command just because of a title. But what I didn't know, that at that time, I was just about to become a damn bad leader without knowing it. A little more about where I come from. I come from a small kingdom called Denmark. We have a queen and her royal family, lots of princes and princesses. We are a small democracy, the happiest people in the world. Well, only recently beaten by the Finns. Well, maybe it was 5 years ago. Denmark is also known for the fairy tales of the world famous Hans Christian Andersen. and we all live happily ever after. Or do we really? Hans Christian Andersen wrote, he was, as I said, he was also Danish, and a world-famous poet, subtly criticizing everything that was wrong in society. He died in 1875, 70 years ago. Sorry, 70 years old. But if he was looking at us now, he would probably tell us, hey, you guys around the world, you believe you have adapted your organizations over time, but have you changed anything of real importance in business for the last 150 years while I was dead? And are you still fooling himself, he would say. Did you learn nothing from the story about the emperor's new clothes, where the tailor said, this fabric is very special. It can't be seen by those who are fools. Now, think about Andersen's words now. Does your company organizational diagram look like this? It was written in 1822. I'm pretty sure that some of you may recognize it. Can you see the difference from this one and the one in your own organization? Maybe some of you can, most of you cannot. It's 200 years ago or old, and we claim that we have developed our organizations and the ways we work because we do. That is what we claim. But the truth is that our organizations are still hierarchy, they are hierarchical and bureaucratic. Management is still about command and control. Think about this, the story of my father. Total command, total control. Taylorism rules with a division, still rules with a division between thinkers and the doers. The managers being the thinkers and the workers being the doers. Managers have the final word and take the important decisions. So once upon a time, if Hans Christian Andersen were to write a contemporary essay about what is happening in our organizations these years and how blind we are, he would say, once upon a time in 1992, an enterprise architect, the EA, was about to go to work at a new company. She had got a new job. At home, she managed her life herself. At home, she took care of her children, her dogs, her personal belongings, her relationships, and her close friends. And she could spend millions, at least Danish kroner, on buying a house, a home, daily transportation. She paid the mortgage, she paid her loans, and other obligations, and her taxes. In other words, she was accountable for her life and her whereabouts. She felt happy on her way to her new job, and she was motivated on her way. So, how can I do this? Knock, knock. She hammered the front door of the new office. She was happy and motivated. In that very moment, magic happened. A big, ugly witch, disguised as an enterprise architect manager, opened the door. The manager said, "Welcome, EA. I will be your mentor and a servant leader here. And first thing you need to learn about the freedom is a bit about the freedom and empowerment we offer all our employees in this company. Freedom and empowerment. However," he said, "this very special freedom and empowerment can only be seen by those employees who are not fools." Now, since the EA did not consider herself a fool, she looked forward to working with this exciting company. And although she was having a small problem in noticing the promised freedom and empowerment, she silently accepted that the company instantly took away the following things. Her ability to manage her work life. That was now the responsibility of a person who was hired to manage her manager. They had taken away her capability to spend money. She now had to ask a person who was hired to manage her and take decisions for her, although she was hired in as an expert. The company had taken away her freedom to decide which teams she wanted to join and which projects were actually the best for her, and the amount of work effort that she should work in. That was now her manager who could take decisions about that. On her way home, on that first work day, she wondered why she could not see that freedom and empowerment the manager had promised. And she still did not consider herself a fool. But eventually she forgot all about it. She got used to blindly following the rules of the game. She actually felt cursed. Until suddenly, a former colleague called her and cried out. "It is the Empress' new clothes," he said. "All over again. We were never free and empowered. It was a big lie. Now come and join me in this new company. It's very different over here," he said. "Here we work out of two main principles. And that changes everything," he told her. "The culture, the way decisions are taken, engagement, everything. It's fun, we are free, and we are empowered." And so she did. She quit her job and she joined that other company, although it sounded too good to be true. But the curse was lifted. And at that company, they lived happily ever after. End of story. Snip, snap, snout. Now this story is out. And let us now look do a fast forward back to the real world. Because it actually also was a true story, what I just told you. This company that I was telling you about, or Hans Christian Andersen was telling you about, actually existed in 1992, and that company still exists. It is called the Morningstar Company. It is a tomato processing manufacturer, and they worked with two overall principles, and we'll take a look at them now. Around 1992, and I'm still talking about the Morningstar Company, around 92, the CEO and founder, Chris Roofer, he was actually sick and tired of the hierarchy in his company because he said it slows down everything. And he therefore decided to apply two groundbreaking principles. The first one says, no one can force another person against his or her will. The second says, we keep commitment to one another. So when I say I do something, I make sure to do it. Otherwise, I'll tell you myself. He said, I don't want this pointless bureaucracy. It produces ineffectiveness and disengagement. I've seen it now for many years. He was the founder. And I will have no levels of management anymore. I will have no levels of management. So from now on, we are colleagues and we are grown-up people who can manage ourselves. It is a true story. It really happened. And in 2022, today, as I speak, these two principles still apply. And just in case those two principles sound a little familiar to you somehow, it's probably no wonder. Because outside of our offices, the principles apply wherever we go. And if they didn't, just imagine what happened if you walk in a street and a total stranger orders you to join a certain meeting inside a building that you just passed. That would be weird, wouldn't it? And in most countries, it would be illegal. Or imagine if you were forced to clean your neighbor's house just because they told you so. That would also be illegal. But now think about this. Isn't it weird that those two principles don't apply anymore the minute we walk into the office? Have you ever been forced to go to a Scrum event or a meeting where you didn't bring any value? Or a meeting where you didn't learn anything from? Have you ever had to produce tons of management reports that were never used, and you had to do it just because a person with authority said or told you to do so? At least some of us have. I believe many of us have. Now, since the first introduction of self-management, because that is really what it was by the CEO and founder, Chris Roofer, and I'm still with the Tomato, the processing company, the Morningstar. Since he introduced this, the company went through a tremendous change. It has become the largest tomato processing company in the world. The hierarchical organizational diagram was replaced by a fully networked way of working. And it is the results of applying these two principles and the fact that there are no need for managers of others. We keep our commitments to one another, so nobody needs to manage us. And no one can actually force another person against his or her will. Now think about this. At least I did when I heard and learned about this a few years ago. Should we fire all the managers then? I think it's a good question, but no. There's no need to fire anyone. And they didn't do that at the Morningstar company at all. Nobody were fired, and everybody were involved in that transformation, huge transformation 30 years ago. And what the CEO says, well, to manage is simply getting things done. We are a large company. We need to get things done. But we don't need anybody to control or oversee other people because we keep our commitments. So nobody need to force anybody against their will. What happened then was, and that is still what happens in those kind of similar companies, emergent leadership will prevail. Emergent means popping up suddenly. So one person will lead something today, and maybe something else the next day, or the next week, or the next month, or the next year. So emergent leadership will actually pop up. And these new, more appropriate org structures, no, that was the other one, will actually be seen. But we will work within certain and known boundaries, and I'll get back to that. First, we will, however, take a close look at what I call damn good leadership, because I have taken those ideas and principles a little further into what I call damn good leadership. In organizations with damn good leadership, we are all leaders. In organization with the damn good leadership, we all get things done. So to lead is to get things done alone or with others. But we don't have any power hierarchies. We don't need and we don't have useless bureaucracy. Emergent leaders lead because they are chosen by colleagues, not because of some ranks on my shoulders like my father. And decisions are taken by groups or individuals who have knowledge about what they decide, and they are capable as well of utilizing it. So we don't send information up in a hierarchy and tell that person all about it, and then he or she will take a decision and let us know that decision. That is not the way this works. Damn good leaders will lead with dignity, respect, and without coercion of others. And damn good leaders are proactively focusing on creating a sustainable work environment where colleagues are engaged and responsible. Emergent leaders, as I said before, pop up all the time temporarily. We don't come in as a leader and now we are a leader forever whenever I am in this company. It's simply not needed. No managers of others, right? I'll give you another example of, so to say, a progressive organization like the Morningstar company that I also talked about. Because before you run away and scream and cry, there are no companies like that. Stay with me for a second, because this is also a real story. Pingala is a small Danish ERP house without managers of other people. There are managers, but no managers of other people. And there are lots of leadership, because that is really what we see. No managers, but lots of leadership. They don't have an org chart, but according to Danish law, one manager must exist, a formal manager. There must be a CEO. So there is a CEO. According to Danish law, one person must be accountable for the accounts. At this company, Pingala, that is also the CEO. At Pingala, there are around about 100 people now. There are no people managers, not even people managers. Every one of them refer formally to the CEO. Every one of those 100 people work in self-selecting teams. The teams are responsible for everything: sales, delivery, communication, support of whatever they produce in their teams, including giving feedback to each other, by the way. And no one is a manager of other people. Everyone has a mentor, and that is part of the boundaries that I will get back to. So everyone has to have a mentor, but it can be a self-chosen colleague. There's no coercion, but they know they need to have a mentor because they need to develop as human beings. It could also be the CEO. They are free to choose, and there is no coercion. I actually visited them and went to their website, and I was looking for their org chart. There must be something, I thought, but there wasn't. There is an overview of the pictures of all the colleagues. I said, I wonder, how can I find the CEO? I actually needed his phone number. I needed to call him. And eventually I found him. This is the guy, he's the CEO. It just says, I'm management. And he's the only person where it says management. But he was there. So that says a little about how real all these things are. The next subject that I will touch upon is this one, about power, how power corrupts. Do any of you know the taste of power? Because I do. I said in the beginning that when I started in my first job as a manager in Nokia, I was on my way to becoming a damn bad leader without even knowing it. The thing is that after a while, in my first manager's job, I noticed that I started to like my new life a little too much. It was a life with power and additional benefits such as company car, expensive courses, more expensive than our employees, expensive dinners, a powerful network. I became to like that more and more. But fortunately, when I got aware of my desire for more and more power, somehow it started to scare the hell out of me. And maybe that was very fortunate. I'll tell you why. Because this is a problem. Power corrupts. It's not something that I claim. Science show, research show that does not destroy our brain. That's not what I'm saying. I like to say but it does not. But it changes our brain. Power changes our brain. One of the most famous study of this is the very well-known Stanford prison experiment. Many of you must know it already. It's been there's even been made a movie about it. It's a social psychological experiment that was scheduled to last 14 days. And that experiment showed what people can be led to do when they are given status and power over others. Status and power over others. In the experiment, those who had been given the role of the jailers, it was a role play, but those who had been given the role of the jailers began to exhibit psychological terror. I almost cannot say it. Psychological terror. I mean, it was a role play, an experiment. Psychological terror against those who had been given the role as prisoners. And it went so wrong that they had to stop the experiment after 6 days. So that is one example of how power corrupts our brain. And at that time, when I became a manager, I had no idea. Probably nobody knew at that time. Now it gets even worse, because it turns out that we are all predisposed to abuse power. I mean, our brains are predisposed to abuse power. Power can result in reckless behavior, and a powerful brain is more impulsive, less empathic, and produces more oppression to other people. This is a powerful brain. Think about how powerful very, very many of us who are managers, or maybe I should say I were a manager, how powerful our brains really were and what happened. This was well known by the CEO and founder of a Dutch company called bureaucracy. Some of you may also know this company, Jos de Blok. He knew that power corrupts. He formed bureaucracy in 2006. It is a home care company. They have more than 10,000 nurses. Maybe they are at 15,000 now, but it's still quite many. And those, let's say 10,000 nurses, work in 1,000 self-managed teams. 1,000 self-managed teams mean 10 nurses in each team. He has formed a networked organization. There is no team lead in any of the teams. It does not exist. There are no managers of others. Does not exist. But there is a leadership team of two persons, including the CEO, Jos de Blok. And the leadership team they give the vision of the company, they give guidance to their colleagues, and they set the boundaries boundaries that I will come back to. This is how bureaucracy looks. They don't have an org diagram, so this is the closest we come to, finding out how are they organized. But they are organized in teams. They are in a networked organization, and the glue of all of them is this: they gather around what they call the bureaucracy web. It's the IT system that actually links them all together. So they have those 10,000 nursing teams, and you see 4 of them here. You also see, this is difficult, a team of coaches, not agile coaches, but coaches in the life coaches, you could say, in general coaches. There is also a group of backend supporters, HR, legal, and finance, etc. Here we have top leadership. I would have expected to see it in here, but no. This is their IT system. That is the glue, not the top leadership. They only give some direction. There are 2 people in here. Oh, this is different. There are 2 people in here. This is probably not something we see or you see every day, I guess. One more diagram about bureaucracy. People who like numbers would maybe like to see that these 10,000 nurses, they then consist of, they are 93.3% of the company, and the support staff is only 0.0%. They are 50 altogether. 20 coaches only for 10,000 people, and then these 2 directors in the top leadership, approximately 0%. I'm pretty sure that quite many management consultants would call this very effective. It has existed since 2006, and they are still growing, actually also internationally. So now I have given you examples of 3 very different companies. One has 4,000 employees. That is the Morningstar company. One has 10,000 plus, and the small Danish company, 100 people. There are right now thousands of companies around the world that we can call progressive organizations, like the ones that I have told you about. They practice self-management. There are no managers of other people, I should say, probably many managers, but no managers of other people. Remember, managers get things done, and we need a lot of that. And then there's no coercion in these thousands of companies. In little Denmark, where I come from, I have noted in my new book on DamnGoodLeadership, I have given references to 7 companies in that book, but I know there are many more, and still more is coming every month. That is, as a Danish leader, it's pretty interesting. The company called Corporate Rebels, they have created a bucket list with progressive organizations like this, and they have visited more than 100 companies. What characterizes these progressive companies is that all of them have implemented some variants of those 2 principles. Some variants of those 2 principles. That is pretty interesting. No hierarchies and no managers of other people, neither. The vision of this company, Corporate Rebels, is to make work more fun. And Corporate Rebels' bucket list is a collection of pioneers, rebels, and revolutionaries, bossless organizations, as they call them, and business leaders who change the status quo of frustrating workplaces. As I said before, they have visited more than 100 companies and leaders, and the list of those bossless companies is fortunately ever growing. almost done, but before I end, I've mentioned the word boundaries a few times now, so let you give me some examples of that. Because just because there are no managers of other people, it's not that everything is allowed and any person can do anything they like. That might be nice, but that's not how it is. There are lots of so-called boundaries, and there have to be lots of boundaries within self-managed organizations. I'll give you a few examples. One company have introduced what we call peer agreement between those who work towards the same goals in the enterprise. An example of that is a self-management worksheet. A self-management worksheet where I tell others what I do, my decision rights that I have negotiated with my colleagues, my goals and objectives. I'm probably in a team, so I follow the team's goals and objectives, and my purpose, meaning why do I choose to work here? What is my personal purpose? What is my knowledge? What are my skills? What are my capabilities, etc.? Self-management worksheet as an example of peer agreements, part of boundaries that are pretty critical. Another example is to have decision-making rules. There are many, I live in a democracy, and we very often do this consensus and power of the majority will rule, right? But there are many other ways, and any company need to actually make decision-making rules visible and agreed and so forth. And I mean, they don't need to have only one. There are quite many types of that. Rules for recruitment. Usually, recruitment is done by a people manager, but in the progressive organization, it is very often a group of people, the new colleagues of that new person will actually do interviews and will do the decisions, because who else should decide? Those rules of recruitment also, of course, is a boundary and has to be known by everybody, of course. Now, it may sound a bit strange, but think about it. It's not all anarchy. It's very nice to know, just in case we have disagreements, we have conflicts, who will have the final word? At a company that I work with, we call it, we have a group of guardians, a small group that we can always turn to them and ask for a decision, and they are selected, by the way. Also, rules about how to handle conflicts needs to be provided by these boundaries. Steffen, jeg ved. Tak. I'm sorry. Otherwise, yeah, this is important. Two parties are obliged to contact a mediator themselves. Otherwise, their colleagues can ask them to do so. So, pretty important boundaries. Jeg er færdig lige om lidt. Det her er det sidste. So about this. My final subject is about Scrum without managers. Scrum without managers. How does this look? Or how would it look in Scrum? Because actually, there are by default no managers in Scrum. There are no managers in Scrum. So Scrum teams deliver products despite of managers and despite of a bureaucracy. For those of you who know about Scrum patterns, there's a Scrum book. There is one pattern that is interesting. It is called Involve the Managers. You have to remember to involve the managers. But when I read between the lines of this pretty interesting pattern, it is involve the managers for the sake of hierarchy. So I've actually been trying to develop a new pattern about Scrum without managers, but I don't really find, I'm sure they are out there, but I haven't found any teams with no managers around them. But I do know about one in German Bosch, but that's not enough. So let me give you my view of Scrum without managers within this damn good leadership, because there will be no need to force any frameworks on Scrum teams or other Agile teams. I said the A word. Because if Scrum works for teams, they will choose Scrum. If not, they will choose something else, because they are the ones in control. Point number 2, Scrum teams need not send reports to others. Because of this principle number 2, saying we keep our commitment to one another. What would a manager do there? We deliver what we have promised, or we tell people, wait, we didn't make it. This is what we will do instead. So they will communicate accordingly. The third thing, I'm just picking 3 of the most important things that I see here. Scrum without managers in damn good leadership environments is that everything will be done by invitation. The 2 principles that I have talked about now, they ensure that there are no enforced events in Scrum where people get bored or unengaged. And if a colleague does not provide any value or learn something at an event or Scrum event or another meeting, he or she is excused by default. And some of you will maybe know this, recognize this as the law of 2 feet. So that, of course, will always apply in this. What about boundaries in Scrum? There are many boundaries in Scrum already. What we call enabling constraints. And just 2 examples. The Scrum events is a boundary, and the accountabilities, formerly called roles, is also a boundary. So that is one example. And I'm almost done. But I didn't. Well, once I think I said the A word, agile, because this is not about agile organizations. We don't need this term of an agile organization with damn good leadership in damn good organizations. There's no one to manage other people. And when that is true, those two principles will actually create workplaces where it is fun to work. So, damn good leadership, is it that simple? Was my father, the sea pilot, a damn good leader? Well, I would say no, because there still is too much hierarchy. But I believe he was a good leader. He did a good job assisting the world's largest tankers and bulk carriers and whatever. He helped them assisted them safely to harbor with the needed authority. And he was very calm and very experienced. So I would say he was a good leader, but not a damn good leader. And we have to remember to put everything into context. And thank you for your attention. That was my words.
Thank you very much for your wonderful speech and visual facilitation and everything. Really appreciate having you with us, Leise.